government limits on what drug companies and hospitals can charge. Charles Milliken is a retired auto mechanic. He says he's expecting to see some serious price controls from the new president.
I think he's going to put a cap on what what insurance companies can charge, what doctors can charge, what hospitals.
Sit Down with Russ Latino on MPB Think Radio. To join the show, email thesitdown@mpbonline.org or send us a voice note with the Talk to Us feature inside the MPB Public Media app. This is MPB Think Radio.
From MPB Think Radio, this is The Sit Down with Russ Latino, where we explore the ideas and people that are shaping Mississippi's future. We're going to have a very interesting conversation today. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the world, a lot of stuff happening in Washington, D.C., a lot of stuff happening at your state capitol right now as the legislature is in session and working furiously on a variety of bills, from tax reform to education reform to questions about what we do with public pensions. We thought we'd get a little more granular than even that today, though, and talk a little bit about the city of Jackson, our capital city, with the one and the only Othor Cain. Mr. Cain, welcome to the Sit Down.
Hey, good morning, Russ. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Glad to have you. And as always, Germaine Flood in the booth.
I am excited about this one. Well,
I am glad that you are excited. I'm excited about this one too. I'm excited about the fact that you're being recognized tomorrow, right?
Yes, so it's a blessing. Things have just been coming my way, and one of those things is the Women in Media celebration, where I'm a nominee for an award, possibly. But I really do thank the Women of Progress Incorporated for nominating me for this award.
A major
award. Yeah.
Speaking of major awards, I was in your office. There's a miniature version of the lamp from the Christmas Story, the soft glow of electric sex in your office.
That's my favorite movie of all time. You cannot watch it with me. I know it verbatim.
Well, I noticed. So you have one major award. You may be about to get another one in response to your excellent work.
Award.
Well deserved.
Well deserved.
Well
Thanks,
deserved.
Russ.
Well deserved.
Well, look, I'm excited about the show, too, because I have said for a very, very long time that the state of Mississippi needs a thriving capital city. And I think people sometimes outside of Jackson don't understand the importance of Jackson. Like, I grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We knew Jackson was a thing, but we didn't really think about it on a daily basis. But this is where this idea was cemented in my mind. When the water crisis happens a few years ago, I started getting calls from people across the country that I'm friends with, that I've done business with, and they want to know, one, do I have clean water? And two, are we okay? And so what happens in Jackson reflects on our entire state, and it reflects outside of our entire state. And it's important that our capital city be one that survives and thrives. You've been talking about this stuff for a very long time. I'm curious, as you look at the landscape right now, Do you think Jackson's heading in the right or the wrong direction?
So first let me go back to one of the things that you said when you realized Jackson was a thing. Jackson is the capital city of the state of Mississippi. Jackson is more than a thing. Jackson is a city. So goes Jackson, so goes the rest of the state. You know what I mean? And it's about time that people start treating Jackson once again like it's the capital city. People use our streets, people use our fire and police protection, people use our water, people do all of these things, yet they treat Jackson as if it's a stepchild, or an offspring. But nonetheless, right? Do we have our issues in Jackson? Absolutely, we do. Absolutely. I'm on the front lines every single day pointing out those issues. So to answer your question, if I think Jackson is going in the right direction, I think that things can improve, right? I think there are a lot of challenges in Jackson that causes us to be deterred or causes us to get off base or go astray a little bit. But I certainly do think that Jackson can once again return to its prominence.
Yeah, and look, when I say realize it's a thing, I think what I'm saying is that for a lot of people that don't live in Jackson, it's not front of mind every day, right? So we've got people who are listening to us on the coast, listening to us in Hattiesburg, up in DeSoto County, and they think they know Jackson's the capital, but it's not something that they think about regularly. And they also don't think in terms of, well, how do we make Jackson better? Or what's the importance of making Jackson better? And so I'm glad there are people like you that are out there having those thoughts. I'm curious, when you look at things, you said, hey, there are some things that we can improve on. What are the things that Jackson is doing right now?
Well, I think Jackson is doing several things right. And again, let me go back, because I believe that when you live in other parts of the city, it really isn't your mindset or your goal or your priority to fix Jackson or to think about Jackson. You think about your domicile. You think about where you live. You think about improving your own community, your own neighborhood. You don't necessarily, I don't think about improving Biloxi. I don't think about improving the Gulf Coast. I don't think about improving Tupelo. I don't think about improving Hattiesburg. I think about improving Jackson, because this is where I live. This is where my heart is. This is where my priorities are. And I think we are all the same. We think about our space. You don't live in Jackson, right?
I do not.
And so Jackson's not necessarily your priority, right? But those of us that live in Jackson, I know everybody have thoughts about Jackson. Everybody think that they think what's best for Jackson. But when you live in Jackson, you're invested in Jackson, that's when it really becomes paramount. And so to answer your question, what do I think Jackson's doing right? I think that this Mayor Chokwe Othor Lumumba, has done an amazing job at presenting school board members. I think the Jackson Public School District has an amazing school board. I don't think people give him enough credit for that. Outside of that, I also think that we're going in the right direction now. He has put a great police chief in the form of Chief Joe Wade as the police chief. I think that we're going in the right direction now as far as public safety is concerned.
So I'm curious, obviously with the school board situation, I mean, the members of the school board are elected, correct?
No, sir. They're not.
Appointed?
They're appointed.
Okay.
They are appointed by the mayor, and they are approved by the city council.
Okay. And so
you didn't know that, huh?
I did not.
Yeah.
So see, that's the point of having you on, is to learn things. So you think the school board is doing a pretty good job?
I think they're not a pretty good job. No, sir. I think they're doing an amazing job.
So I think
our school district is going in the right direction. In fact, we've moved the letter grade. No more charter schools can come into the city of Jackson because we have moved from a D/F to a very strong C. And had we not had some infractions, we would be at a B now. So I think the school board and the district, under the leadership of Dr. Eric Green, they're doing an amazing job.
One of the things that I saw a couple of years ago that the school board took some hits on, that I think they made the absolute right decision on, was to start consolidating schools. And I know that's a controversial topic, right? But I remember watching that going, they're doing exactly what everybody is eventually going to have to do. And they're getting out in front of it. As population changes, as we serve fewer students, we've got to think about what's the physical footprint of the system that costs an awful lot of resources. And I actually did think those decisions were incredibly wise decisions. Now, if you went to some of those schools growing up, it hurt, Right,
because it's personal, right?
Because I got an allegiance to that school.
That's right.
But those were the right decisions.
Right. And just for clarity, it's not the school board that did that. The school board approved the recommendation by Dr. Eric Green. The school board does not run the day-to-day operations of the district. So the school board didn't just up and decide that they wanted to close some schools. That was a decision that Dr. Eric Green and his team made because they recognized the financial strain that was happening on the district. They recognize all of the students that we've lost in the Jackson Public School District to charter schools, to surrounding school districts. And they said, okay, let's just hypothetically look at what's happening in Rankin County, right? Rankin County has roughly 18,000 students, JPS around the same number. Rankin County has about 30, 40 schools. Jackson Public Schools has 57 to 60 school buildings operating. It made no sense financially. And I think that they were a good steward of taxpayers' dollars. I think that Eric Green and his team presented a plan to the school board, and the school board approved that plan.
So I think I'll be interested to see if you answer my next question. So
I'm answering all of them, aren't I?
Well, there's an answer and there's an answer. So here's the question. You just gave a lot of credit to Mayor Lumumba. Mayor Lumumba is obviously, he's got his critics, obviously currently under some cloud of suspicion with a federal indictment. When you look at his overall performance, if you had to assign, you talked about letter grades a moment ago in schools, if you had to assign a letter grade to the performance of Mayor Lumumba, what letter grade would you assign?
Overall is what you're asking, right? And so again, for me, I listen to words, and there's a play on words. I didn't give him a whole lot of credit for a whole lot of things. I gave him credit for the things that I see that he is doing right, namely appointing a school board. So I want to be very clear about that. And so if I had to give him a letter grade, I think that his letter grade would be a D.
Okay, and why is it a D and not an F or not a C?
Well, the reason that it isn't an F because he has not been a complete, total, and utter failure. He has gotten some things
right. A school board.
Right? School board. New police chief, right? So he's done some things right. Why isn't it a C in my mind? Because there's so many other things that he should be doing, right? He's been in office, 8 years now, running for a third term. Yes, we should be further along than we are now.
We're talking with Othor Cain. We've got to take a brief break. We'll come back in right a minute. We are dealing with Inception right now, though, because Othor has live stream within live stream. It feels like we're breaking the fourth and fifth and sixth wall today. You're listening to The Sit Down with Russ Latino. We're going to be back in just a moment.
Graduating from Tougaloo College, Moody became a full-time civil rights worker, participating in protests like the sit-in at a Woolworth's lunch counter in Jackson, where a mob attacked her and other protesters. Moody's autobiography, Coming of Age in Mississippi, is a powerful portrayal of life for a young African-American woman in rural Mississippi before and during the civil rights movement. This has been an MPB moment in Black history.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now.
You're listening to The Sit Down right here on NPB Think Radio. I'm your host, Russ Latino. Today, our guest, Digital Creator Political Analyst, man about town, Othor Cain. Othor, we are obviously talking Jackson today, the capital city. I appreciate the passion that you bring to the subject. Obviously, it is your backyard, and you care about what happens.
Back and front. Back and front.
Back, front, side, whatever.
That's
right? And you care about what happens in the city of Jackson. You want to see it be successful.
Russ, before we get going on this one, 1-877.
Oh, yeah, there's a phone number.
MPB ring. That's 1-877-672-7464 if you want to get in on the conversation. All right, head on. You got it, Russ.
No, there you go. Look, while you were talking, I'm just checking text messages. People are like, man, what's going on up in here?
This is fiery.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So, no, look.
People are saying that via text?
Yeah. I get lots of random texts when we're on air from people. Sometimes they make sense and sometimes they don't. We've got a lot of listeners that actually will send emails to us too. I know Thomas Kelly is one that
shout out to Thomas
is a
Kelly.
Regular listener.
He is a fan. He's a fan.
And so I appreciate him sending emails last week as well.
Tell Thomas don't beat up on me though, because I love Jackson. No kidding.
Thomas is sending an email this afternoon, Othor. I want you to know.
He's not going to beat up on you. Look, this is a no beat up on people zone. This is like a let's have a conversation about how we fix things zone. So you look at Mayor Lumumba and you said you'd give him a D.
Yes.
Not everything's bad. You pointed to the school board being something that is a positive step. You know, you and I have talked about this off air. When I think about sort of the core functions of government, you can have a lot of debate about other stuff government should do, but this is the stuff that everybody agrees government should do. You got to have police that make sure the streets are safe. You got to have streets that are drivable. You got to have garbage that gets picked up. You got to have water that's clean. Those are like core basic functions of government. That I think whether you're far right or far left, if I took a poll right now, everybody would say, government should do that. When you look at those things, how is the city of Jackson doing, and what has Mayor Lumumba done to either improve or make the situation worse?
So, let me take your analogy, right? So if you're in school and you're in a math class, right? So you have goals, you have objectives, you have midterm exams, you have final exams, you have tests in between all of those things to get to a passing grade, right? Your final grade, right? And so I would say that there are steps along the way where Mayor Lumumba has been a dismal failure. I would say that the basic tenets of government are those things that you articulated: infrastructure, fire and police protection, garbage, right? I would say that Jackson looks pretty bad in those areas. Though I would also say that I think there's improvements being made, particularly with the police. I think that he has gotten it right. I thought that the previous police chief, James Davis, I thought that he was is a great guy. I just thought that he was out of his lane. Everybody's not a leader. And oftentimes we tend to pluck people away from their perch and put them in positions that they're not capable of succeeding in. But because we like them and because they're performing well over there, we want to lift them up. And I think that was a mistake. I think Jackson saw the results of that not being James Davis's forte in terms of leading the entire department. I think, though, Lumumba has gotten it right with Joe Wade. And so while that part was an F for me, it is now a C-, right? It's now a C-. We still have
is some of that just the size of the force with the police force, right? Because, I mean, my understanding is the Jackson police force has gotten a lot smaller over time. Some of that is a population attrition as well. And
it's pay, and it's Capitol Police, and it's all of these other agencies that are around us. People come to Jackson, they train at the Jackson Police Department, they spend our tax dollars, they spend our training dollars, and then they leave, they go, right? And so it's about retention, right? So size of force is part of the problem. Pay is a large part of the problem. Here's what I contend, and you and I may disagree on this, right? Jackson is the capital. I think everybody wants Jackson to succeed. I think Jackson could succeed no matter who's in the mayor's seat if state leadership wanted Jackson to succeed.
So I do think we would disagree on this slightly for this reason. You said earlier that if I live in a town, I live in Biloxi, I care about Biloxi. I live in DeSoto County. I care about DeSoto County. You live in Jackson. You care about Jackson. At some level, there's got to be a case made to the rest of Mississippi that they should care about where they live, but they should also care about Jackson. I don't disagree with that concept because I do think the capital city is important. But at some level, it feels like there's got to be the agency of people who live in Jackson who don't have the viewpoint to say, hey, everything would be better if people from other parts of the state would help, but have the viewpoint that say, with the right leadership, we can improve our city and we can bring other people into the fold.
So I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And here's how that's done in my mind. When you go to that state capitol, you have people from all parts of Mississippi there, right?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
They're there. So what are they doing? They're using our roads in Jackson. They're using our water. They're using our fire, police protection. They're using all of these things. I believe it starts at the Capitol. I believe there has to be a concerted effort at the Capitol to make Jackson better.
And what I would say is there is evidence of investment in Jackson. Certainly the Capitol Complex District and some of the improvements that have been made around the Capitol and state buildings. I think you mentioned the CCID and the police, Capitol Police. I know that's a controversial thing, but it seems like the Jackson Police Department and the Capitol Police are working together. It seems like they have a good relationship. Is that not your read?
I think that they have a good relationship. I think those are two different subjects, though. I think that Capitol Police, Jackson Police Department, I think they work well together. They're adults, right? They understand what public safety is. They understand what law enforcement is. They have no choice but
how is that not an investment?
Work.
But how is that not an investment from people in other parts of the state? If the entire state of Mississippi is paying to help improve roads in Jackson, if the entire state of Mississippi is paying to put additional police officers in the street in Jackson, how are taxpayers in other parts of the state not contributing to the improvement of Jackson?
So I didn't say that. Those are your words. I didn't say that they weren't contributing. So I don't want you to put words in my mouth, right? Those are your words. Right? Hold on, let me finish. Those are your words. Here's my position. Do I think that's an investment in Jackson? Absolutely, I do. But that's a small investment. That's for a subset of people. That's not for the city at large. When you talk about putting dollars, Capitol Police has a coordinated district, a specific district that they cover. They don't cover all of Jackson, right?
Sure.
And if we are honest, let's look at the district that they cover. And let's look at how and why CCID was founded in the first place. It's not for all of Jackson. Going back to the Capitol, it's for the district where those people at the Capitol work in, where they travel in, right? It's not for all
So my
of
understanding
Jackson.
of the bill from a couple of years ago is that they essentially had concurrent jurisdiction over most of Jackson on the Capitol Police. But set that aside for a second. Your original.
But that's not true. So CCID is a specific coordinated area.
I know the CCID is
Yeah.
a specific coordinated area. I'm talking specifically about Capitol Police.
They don't have jurisdiction over all of Jackson.
I didn't say all. I said most
Right.
of Jackson.
Not even most.
So, okay, we can disagree on that. We're not going to pull out maps and prove it on this program. We can
pull out the map and do that if you want.
that'd be fine. So here's the issue, though. Your original argument was that because the Capitol complex uses resources of Jackson, that they need to invest more heavily in Jackson, right? And I'm saying that the Capitol complex, because they are using those resources, has invested in Jackson, in roads, in police, etc. The question for me is, okay, if we're going to look at it and say that we're going to blame state legislators, what specifically should state legislators do in order to improve Jackson? And what confidence can the rest of the people of Mississippi have in making that investment in Jackson when right now we're in a situation where the current mayor is under federal indictment for bribery?
It has nothing to do with their investment in Jackson. Go ahead.
No, but what you're asking for is for money to be poured into Jackson, presumably into the city infrastructure, not for the state to spend money and have its own police force, but for the state to say, here's more money, City of Jackson. And if that's the case, someone has got to make the case to the rest of the state of Mississippi that that money is going to be put in hands where they have confidence that it is not going to be misused.
Wow, so that was loaded, and that's mixing a lot. And
I don't think it's loaded, and I don't think it's mixing a lot.
So I do, though, and because I believe that I'm going to have to try to answer it as best I know how.
Go ahead.
So I do think it's overloaded. I do think it's convoluted. I do think it's mixing oil and water, because that is a lot. That's a lot. Here's what I'm saying to you about Jackson, where Jackson is. If Governor Tate Reeves, who lives at the governor's mansion, part-time, full-time, or however often he stays there, Delbert Hosemann, the lieutenant governor, who lives in Jackson, right? The leadership at the state capitol, the Jackson delegation, and all these people, if they wanted Jackson to succeed, it would matter not who was sitting in the mayor's seat. If their intentions were pure, that they want Jackson to succeed, not the political person sitting in office as the mayor, but they wanted the best for the city of Jackson. Barring politics, right? Forget about Democrat, forget about Republican. I'm talking about the city of Jackson. If they wanted Jackson to be better, then they would make an investment in Jackson, regardless as to who's in control or who's in the mayor's seat, if they wanted Jackson to be better.
Othor, I don't think that's fair. I really don't.
Okay.
And here's why I don't think it's fair. You're looking at it going, these people would do whatever it takes if they really want Jackson to succeed. But what you're not defining is, well, what does that actually look like? Because I don't think it's true.
Okay.
I don't think it's true that it's as simple as an example of saying, hey, it doesn't matter who the mayor is, if ultimately what the state is doing is giving money to the mayor, giving money to the city council to be able to solve.
Is that what they're doing?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm saying
okay.
if that was the result. Right?
Okay. Because we know they're not doing that. Right?
So if that was the, first of all, that's not true. But if that was the result, that more money was flowing into the Jackson infrastructure, the government in Jackson, who is mayor matters an awful lot. People want to know that their money's not going to be misspent. People want to know that there's accountability. I think there are a lot of people, myself included, who want to see Jackson succeed,
right,
who feel like it's imperative that Jackson
right,
succeeds.
Absolutely.
But if you look at it and you go, hey, if I throw good money after bad, if I'm tossing stuff down the well,
if you're speaking in hypotheticals,
I'm not
Russ.
speaking in hypotheticals.
You're speaking in hypotheticals.
I'm speaking in the current reality of a mayor who is under federal indictment for bribery.
What has that got to do with the water situation? Let's be very clear, because it is so easy to mix those things, because that is the current situation that we're in. It's so easy to mix that. Let's be very clear. Jackson has been going downhill since 1994 when we got our first African-American mayor. You want to know why? Because white flight existed. There were white folks that said, oh, gotta go. We got our first black mayor, and Harvey Johnson, in my mind, was the gold standard of African-American mayors. But white folk left, and then black folk with money left, right? White flight was a real thing. Let's be very clear. CCID was talked about in Harvey's administration, one of them. I don't know which one, because he served 3 terms. I don't know which one. I want to be very clear. While you may think it's unfair for me to say that, it's a reality. Let's look, because one of the things that you love to talk about is water. Let's look at the water situation. Do you think our water situation is based on...
I'm not trying to cut you off, but I actually do have to go to a break.
Hey, let's go.
Let's pick it up when we come back. I like the passion, man. This is how you solve things.
I like reality.
Is you get in a room and you duke it out. We all like reality, folks. We're listening to The Sit Down with Russ Latino, talking to Othor Cain about what's going on in Jackson. We'll be back on MPB Think Radio right after this.
The Measuring Show.
Since 1970, MPB has been enriching the lives of Mississippians.
Everything we do gives us the chance to grow and learn.
With your support, we are always there whenever and wherever you need us. Together through the years, together in the future. Please consider making a donation at mpbfoundation.org. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Both seasons of the 10-Minute Timeout are now available on a variety of podcasting apps. The mini podcast can be binged in a day and is perfect for those that just want a quick listen. Join me, Lacey Alexander, as I sit down with special guests, revisit major moments, and give a platform to the athletes and sports that shape Mississippi. Head over to mpbonline.org to give it a try.
For today's moment in Black history, we salute Jackson State University. With such notable alumni as NFL great Walter Payton, Grammy Award winner Cassandra Wilson, and former Secretary of Education Rod Page, Jackson State University is a source of excellence in the Black community. Founded in 1877 as Natchez Seminary, later moving to the capital city and becoming Mississippi's urban university. We salute Jackson State University. This has been MPB's Moment in Black History.
Welcome back to the Sit Down with Russ Latino, where we explore the ideas and people shaping Mississippi's future. Talking today with Othor Cain. Lively conversation. A lot of passion in the room. It's good. It's good.
It is good, man. It is good.
We've got a caller on the phone from Oxford. Identified himself as Chico. Chico, how are you doing?
Good morning, y'all. I wanted to call about something Jackson is doing right.
Great.
But in the state police conversation and the law enforcement conversation, something that I've been waiting to hear and I haven't been hearing is the state trooper crisis that Tate Reeves inherited from Phil Bryant. That's only gotten worse, and the rest of us Mississippians need some more law enforcement as well. But I called about something Jackson is doing right. And we all know about like the Stamps Burger and the resurgence of the Mayflower Cafe. Those kind of things are real obvious about Jackson doing correctly. And what I'm about to claim here, I don't have the exact numbers about, but this is just what I think, that in a comparison between Oxford, Mississippi, where I am, and Jackson, Mississippi, I would say that per capita, Jackson has more live music venues.
Well, look, there's something to be said for culture, certainly. And I actually do think, thanks for your call, Chico. I actually do think there's some value in how culture draws people, right? So as an example, you look at a city like Nashville. I went to high school in Nashville for a few years. Great town. When I was there, it was not what it is today. I think that the culture of Nashville, the country music thing, helped to draw in some industry, and then real industry came, right? So country music is not what leads Nashville's economy. What leads Nashville's economy is the healthcare industry, Columbia HCA, the banking industry, right? But it started in that there was a cool culture there. So there is some value. And obviously Jackson's a really cool place culturally, right? I think the big questions that you and I were debating, Othor, are the questions that have to get solved so that
all those other things
can happen, right?
Right.
And so I understand that your point of view is the state could just fix this. If the state really wanted to, if the state really cared, they could just fix this.
Or at least help.
The only point that I'm trying to make is, one, I do think there's indicators that the state has helped. Maybe not as much as what you would like, maybe not as much as what I would like in some cases. The end of the day, though, when we're saying the state can fix this, really what we're saying is that the people of Mississippi who elect representatives to sit in the state capitol ultimately want their representatives to be a part of the solution in Jackson. And what does that look like? Because what it looks like is not, hey, don't create your own Capitol Police, invest in the Jackson Police Department. That could be a reasonable point of view. But I think for the rest of the state right now, there's a crisis in confidence in the current leadership in Jackson. Now, I understand you said that a lot of that stems in your perspective from what happened in 1994 with Mayor Harvey. You know, I get that, Harvey Johnson, I get that. I get your point of view. What I would say, though, is that to convince somebody in Itta Bena, Mississippi, or Yalobusha, Mississippi, to invest in Jackson, Mississippi, at the end of the day, they've got to feel like it's going to be used the right way. And so how do you create the accountability structures that ensure that if the state is making that investment, it ultimately gets used in a way that actually improves things?
I don't know that you can ensure that. I think it's a gamble every time you make an investment. It's like going to the casino, right? It's like sticking your money in the slot machine. It's like sitting at the blackjack table. You don't know what the outcome is going to be until you try it.
So I would say that's a bad analogy for this reason. I don't think taxpayers want to think of their investment of tax dollars as going to a casino when there's an over 50% chance you lose. I think what you've got to do is, you're right, there's risk in everything. Every time a business makes a decision to invest somewhere, there's a risk. What they're trying to figure out is, what is the proposed benefit relative to the risk?
Taxpayers are not trying to figure that out. I think that you make that too broad, right? It's not taxpayers that's trying to solve the woes and issues of Jackson. I think you make that too broad, and you want to dump everything under that umbrella.
No, what I'm saying is ultimately taxpayers are the ones that fund
it's
what
where
you're
the money
talking
comes
about.
from, but they're not making the decisions.
They expect their elected representatives
there
to
you
make
go.
those.
Let's hone in on the people who make the decisions.
So, and their elected representatives don't want to go back home and do a town hall in South Haven and say, you know what, we took a gamble, right? They want the probability to be high if they're going to make the investment.
Right. And so again, I think that your argument is too broad because it's not the taxpayers that are making the decisions. And even those representatives, you got those representatives from other parts of the state, that are making decisions for Jackson with no real interest in Jackson, no real investment in Jackson. They're doing it just because. I can't think of the guy's name now, and the charge and the push that he was leading. This is all I'm saying, Russ. And I think fundamentally we agree on the basics, right? This is all I'm saying. If we want to stake claim and lay claim that Jackson is the capital city and Jackson is everybody's capital, it is my fundamental belief that we need more help in Jackson. There is, for many years it has been, there is an anti-Jackson sentiment or an anti-Jackson current that runs through that capital.
True.
No matter who's sitting in the mayor's seat.
So here's what I would say. I don't know that I would say it's true about the Capitol. I think there's an anti-Jackson sentiment outside of Jackson.
You don't know if it's about the Capitol?
I really don't know if it's about the Capitol having an anti-Jackson sentiment. I think there is an anti-Jackson sentiment in some circles outside of the city of Jackson. And I don't think all of it is entirely unfair. I think some of it's unfair.
Right.
I certainly think some of it's unfair.
But we're talking about the people that can help Jackson. That's where I am.
Sure.
Not these broad and
I hear you, but
in general groups of population.
I'm not
talking about the people that can help Jackson.
And I'm going to push back slightly again.
And that's fine.
In that I'm not talking about what is broad. I am laying together the blocks. I am saying that if I am a representative of people in DeSoto County, it is my job to represent the people of DeSoto County. And if I am going to use those people's resources to help a particular city in the state of Mississippi, I need to be able to go home and with a straight face be able to tell them, I did not throw your money down the drain. We put it into something that is going to yield real improvement for Jackson and for the state of Mississippi. And so I hear you saying the Capitol just needs to do more. My question, go from the breadth of the Capitol needs to do more. What exactly do they need to do Where do the resources flow? How do we assure accountability?
And so, again, I'm going to say, because you speak in generalities a lot.
I'm not speaking in generalities.
To me,
I'm
that's
asking you a very specific question.
We've got to go to break. I'm sending y'all to a break. You're listening to The Sit Down with Russ Latino on MPB Think Radio. To join the conversation, 1-877-MPB-RING. That's 1-877-672-7464.
What's happening at the Mississippi Legislature? Tune in to MPB's At Issue for an inside look at the legislative session, interviews with legislators, and perspectives from both sides of the aisle. I'm your host, Wilson Stribling. At Issue airs every Friday night at 6:30 on MPB Think Radio throughout the session. You can also subscribe to the MPB At Issue podcast and catch At Issue videos on YouTube and at mpbonline.org. MPB's At Issue. Tune in, Mississippi.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now, and become a member today, not tomorrow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Doesn't matter how big or small, but we prefer big. Thank you very much.
Dr. Susan Buttress asks the hard questions on Southern Remedy, Relatively Speaking.
Can you forgive anyone, anytime, for anything? Do we know how to have a healthy relationship? Have you heard this statement, who am I to judge? Have we taken a hard look at what we're doing as adults? Are you feeling happy?
Find out our answers to these questions by listening to the Southern Remedy, Relatively Speaking podcasts, or listen live Tuesdays at 11 on MPB Think Radio.
Sit Down with Russ Latino, talking today with Othor Cain. Lively conversation. We're not going to agree on some of these points. Recognize that. I would look at this and ask you this question, though, from a political analyst standpoint. When you look at the Jackson Mayoral Race, a lot of people in that race. Or is it 20 now?
20.
Okay, because we had a couple drop out or be removed.
Correct.
That's an awful lot of people for a race for a mayor. When you look at it, do you have tiers of people that you say, hey, I think this is the top tier, I think this is the second tier? What does that look like?
Yeah, for me, I've narrowed it down to 5, right? You know, it's just, in my mind, man, I just don't think that all 20 of those people could realistically think that they could be mayor of Jackson, right? I just don't think that's possible, right? And I don't think, honestly, I don't think people have, I would like not to think that people had that level of arrogance to think that they could become mayor. 20 people, that's a lot. I look at Birmingham, and although their election just a little ways behind ours, only 3 people so far have signed up to run for the mayor of Birmingham. And so I've narrowed it down to 5, you know, and no data, no scientific data to get me to my 5. I just looked at people and their investment in Jackson already, what they've done for Jackson. I looked at, you know, popularity in terms of name identification and stuff like that. It's too many running. I think that's an indictment on Antar, but I also think it works in his favor as well, right? It's too many. But I do have 5.
Who are your 5?
My 5 are, in no particular order, I think my 5 are Marcus Wallace.
Okay.
For obvious reason, Chokwe Antar Lumumba. Socrates Garrett, I think that's 3. Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba, and David Archie. Those are my 5.
Okay. So I think you said Lumumba twice.
Well, okay, so Chokwe Antar Lumumba, David Archie, Marcus Wallace, Socrates Garrett, and Senator John Horn.
Okay. Gotcha. And so those are the 5 that you think could be in competition. Likely what we see as a runoff?
I think we're gonna head to a runoff. I remember though, was it 2017 that Lumumba had a crowded field and he made it without a runoff? I think it was 17. Can't remember. But all signs are pointing towards a runoff.
When you try to prognosticate between those 5, do you feel like you can read the tea leaves, or do you look at it and say, who knows?
Who knows, man? Who knows? I think for the folks that I've identified as my top 5, I think they all bring a different level of experience to the table. I think that they all have their assets. I think they all have their flaws, and it's just hard to read. It's hard to read. I was watching clips from the debate, the forum that happened on this past Saturday at Doolin Hall. I think a group, Jacksonians for Jackson, did this forum at Doolin Hall. And so I didn't go because I had another event, but I was watching clips from that. And it was very interesting, different perspectives. I think one of the good things about that forum, they allowed the candidates to ask each other questions. So it was good dialogue. It was absolutely good dialogue.
So as you name your 5 and think about that dialogue, are you naming those 5 because they have the best name ID to start with, they have the most resources to start with, or is part of that, those 5 in your mind bring the best ideas to the table? Is it a mix?
I think it probably would be safe to say perhaps a mix. I don't know that I have listened to all 5 of them and or I don't know that I've given them an opportunity to fully articulate their vision and what they'll bring to the table, right? Some of them, yes, I have. All of them, no. So I think it's a mix of that, a mix of name identification already. All of them already have significant name identification.
Are there particular ideas that you hear percolating? And I'm trying to take it from breadth to specificity, where you go, I like what Senator John Horn wants to do on garbage.
Haven't heard that, no.
Okay.
Have not heard that, no.
Are any of them talking in a way about how to fix roads, the police force, garbage, water, in a way that you look at it and go, there's a solution?
I've not heard that, no. Okay. Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, I don't know that I have heard either one of them specifically address issues that are germane to me, that are important to me. I don't know that. I rank the top 5 based on ability, based on popularity, name ID. And so now I'm getting ready to get into the weeds to really, really, really hear. I know John touts, Senator Horn touts, 32 years in the state capitol, right? And that he brings that experience to the city of Jackson. But again, based on part of our conversation earlier, I would ask, out of the 32 years that you've been at the Capitol, what have you specifically done for Jackson? So that would be my question to him, honestly. And for me, that notion that folk in the Capitol can do something, I'll put that question to him. You've been there 32 years, and your total district is not in Jackson. I absolutely get that. But what have you specifically done for the city of Jackson in 32 years that would make me want to give you my vote? That's to John, right? I would say to Socrates Gary, you've been in Jackson, right? You've worked in Jackson. You've made money, from the city of Jackson. In fact, you've become quite wealthy, off the backs of the citizens of Jackson. How have you turned your fortunes into help for the city of Jackson? And that's my standard question. What have any of these candidates done for Jackson? We get a plethora of people to say, I want to be mayor, I want to run, but what have you done for Jackson? So that would be my question to, Socrates Garrett. I would look at Marcus Wallace. Marcus is a very successful businessman in Jackson. I can tell you that I have seen his investments in young people in Jackson. I've seen and watched him provide uniforms for teams, and provide buses for trips. I've seen that investment. And so my question for him would be, how do you expand on that and make it fit for the whole city? How can the whole city benefit for you? So that's how I'm guided. That's how I'm going to make my vote. Who has made an investment in Jackson and really has the heart to lead Jackson?
when you talk to people, because I know you've got a big audience, you go out and you talk to a lot of folks in the city. When you talk to people, what are the specific things that they want to see the next mayor do?
Roads, street lights. We don't have working street lights in Jackson. Basic tenets of government that we talked about earlier, those things are missing. That's what they want. And here's the thing, and this is the narrative that I've been pushing. If you cannot get these candidates to come to your neighborhood and talk to you, like for real, like we're having a conversation, if these candidates won't do that, and if the only thing you have to depend on is a 30-second ad, 60-second ad, or an interview on the radio, don't give them your vote. Yeah. We need to be smart.
No, I will say this, whether we're talking about the city of Jackson or anywhere in the state of Mississippi or anywhere in the United States, then when it comes to local races, what matters is being able to see someone face to face, because you get a sense face to face. Okay, what is this person really about? Is there some depth to this person, or are they just superficial? You get a sense of whether or not you're going to trust that person from those face-to-face interactions. And because a city is small enough that you can go walk streets, if you want to be mayor of Jackson or anywhere, you should go walk streets.
I agree.
You should talk to people.
I absolutely agree.
I think to sort of get back to some of the conversation that we had earlier, I would just say this, that at the end of the day, yes, the state can do more, right? And the state should be thinking about ways to ensure that its capital city is strong. I think at some level, there has to be the agency of people in Jackson who say, even if the state doesn't do what we want them to do, we're going to fix this problem. Because that kind of leadership invites confidence from other people. It invites people who want to be a part of a solution, even if they're not a Jacksonian. And so I would just say that I think this mayoral race is very important. I think what happens with city council seats are very important, because at the end of the day, whether people like it or not, there's got to be confidence in other folks around the state who say, these are folks that we want to be in business with, right? These are folks that we think can actually improve our capital city. I admire your passion. I admire the fact that you want to improve Jackson, Mississippi, because as you said, it is your front yard and your backyard. We always close with something that's a little less than serious. And so I want to close with something a little less than serious with you. We do 5 questions, okay? So they're very, very hard questions.
Oh, God.
They're not. Sweet tea or unsweet tea?
Unsweet.
Okay. It's amazing the number of people who say unsweet. Good for you. See, I'm unsweet, but I always mix in some lemonade, right? So there's that.
Yeah. That's me too.
Last interesting thing you read.
Read,
yeah.
Oh. And this is so corny, but I gotta say the Bible, because I just said to myself 3 days ago that I've got to pick up my reading for 2025, and I've not done that yet. So I've not had a good book to cuddle with. So I really would say the Bible is the last interesting thing that I read, and I did that this morning.
Well, and the Bible's a good one to read, and it is in fact interesting. Cornbread or a roll?
Cornbread.
Okay. You're driving down the interstate. You're going 95 miles an hour, hypothetically. Of course, you would never do that.
Right. I don't even drive on the interstate, so.
Okay. You're driving on some back road, going faster than you should. What are you listening to on the radio?
Gospel music.
Okay. Anything in particular?
Yolanda Adams and Marvin Sapp are probably 2 of my favorite gospel artists out there.
I like Yolanda Adams.
Yeah.
A hidden gem in Mississippi, and it can even be in Jackson.
Actually, it is in Canton, Mississippi. So I think the square in Canton is a hidden gem, right? I think a lot of people know about it, but it has lost its heyday. And I think if we brush that dirt off, if we dust that dirt off, and we can return it to the gem that it is. I love the square in Canton.
The square in Canton is a cool place. And it's particularly cool during Christmas time.
It absolutely is.
Othor, thanks for coming on. Lively conversation.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. For my special guest, Othor Cain, I'm Russ Latino. Stay tuned for Southern Remedy at 11 a.m. Join us back here next week at 10, not 11. Or you can join us at 11 and listen to Southern Remedy next week. Join us back next week at 10 for Germaine Flood in the booth for our live stream production by Abram Nanny today. Thanks for listening to The Sit Down with Russ Latino. We'll be back next week.